Sahana bhavatu sahanau punatu saha viryam karavavahai tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So we started the 9th chapter. What is knowledge? What does it mean when we say we are gaining knowledge? And we spoke about how Google has a whole bunch of information. Not only it has a whole bunch of information, it has tremendous computing powers. It has this amazing ability. Actually, now Google is gone, right? I should say ChatGPT. It has this amazing ability to read up everything and write for you a thesis or give you an answer or whatever it is you want it to do. So does that now mean that all of us have become obsolete? There is no reason for any human being because ChatGPT will do whatever needs to be done. So is that how it's going to be? This is the sort of questions that we have to ask ourselves, even with artificial intelligence coming up. What exactly is it doing? A lot of people believe the difference between us and artificial intelligence is emotions. And so they say the robots will get emotions one day, and then they'll be equal to us. But that's not really correct, because that's not the difference. The difference is in knowledge itself, we are capable of more. We're capable of doing something that, at least as of now, it doesn't seem any way that a computer would have it, which is the equation of knowledge with sattva. How do we do that? So we were studying about higher knowledge and lower knowledge, right? And how as our knowledge goes to higher and higher things, more and more of the world gets lit up. Means you understand more and more of what's happening. You know, when I was in Delhi, I met this gentleman. He's the chairman of Ashoka University. They've started a liberal arts university, and it's a very, very popular thing. And he had many questions to ask about what we are doing. And he said, why would you teach only Vedanta? Why don't you teach all the other subjects as well? If you're starting a university, why doesn't your university teach all the other subjects? Because he, like us, believes that, so we sort of agreed on this idea that knowledge in today's world should be more general than specific. Because the more specific your knowledge is, the more quickly it's going to get obsolete. So you need to have more general skills. In fact, he was at McKinsey. He did his PhD in robotics because he wanted to do something completely different, because he believes in this, having an overall picture, a general view, same thing that we talk about. So he thought that by doing Vedanta, We are making it too specialized, too localized, too narrow. Now, this is which was a real challenge, trying to explain how, though we are studying only one subject, how we get such a broad base to it. I'm sure people in this class will be able to sort of sympathize with this idea more than anyone who's not yet attended classes, which is that as you gain more and more sattva, when your knowledge goes to higher things, everything below becomes crystal clear to you. It's like having a torch, which you can then shine on whatever it is you want to shine it on. Now, this is a very difficult concept to talk to people outside, because they will be, how is that even possible? So this is an important concept for us to understand about how knowledge is higher and lower, and how anything compared to higher is wrong or is lower, and anything compared to the lower is higher. It's sort of, that diagram of the ladder. So this is this conceptually, it is kind of a leap that we need to make. Remember the example? What was the example?
The headlights of the car?
Why headlights? The example of higher and lower knowledge. What happened? Everybody forgot.
The second standard and 10th standard, that one?
Yeah. So when there's a child who draws a drawing, that upside down V and all that, and she says it's a house, we accept it's a house. Then in 10th standard also she draws a house, and we accept that one also as a house. Then she becomes an architect and she draws another house. We accept that also as a house. So that is the Vedantic concept, or that is the Indian concept of anekavada. So from where you are, that is correct. Who is denying it? However, there is something. So that's why it accepts everyone, just like we accept. We accept the child's drawing as a house. We accept the 10th standard child's drawing also as a house. And we accept the architect's. That is this Indian way of ye bhi theek hai, wo bhi theek hai. Yeah, because it is correct. From where the person is talking, it's correct. So once we're able to sort of wrap our head around this idea about how knowledge at different stages is different, and we can't just say this is knowledge and say this you must do. For instance, say you should not, something you say, you should not kill anybody. And this is knowledge. So you should not kill anybody, but is it okay if you think negative thoughts about that person? So no, you shouldn't think negative thoughts about that person. What about if you don't kill him, but you hit him? Is that okay? That's also not okay. So where are you going to draw the line? Suppose there's a murderer. Can you tell that murderer you should learn not to think negative thoughts about a person? That makes no sense. You have to say, please learn not to kill people. So what we have to learn is dependent on where we are. And even if we do learn that thing, there'll be many more things to be learned. And therefore, in India, usually at least, or at least so far, there hasn't been this moral indignation. That I'm saying all the right things and you're so wrong and you should correct yourself. Because our theory is that whatever knowledge I have, I can do it. I really can do that. So why would I look at anyone and say, your knowledge is not? Is that clear? Anybody has a question? So what is this higher knowledge that we talk about? Higher knowledge amalgamates more. So you go from let's say knowing 2 plus 2 is equal to 4 to something like algebra, that when these kind of numbers, you do something to these kind of numbers, then this kind of thing happens, like a squared plus b squared. Otherwise, you sit down, work out. 2 squared plus 3 squared is how much? These are mathematics. When you get to the principle behind it, get to the algebra behind it, then you know each time what the answer is. So that is sort of like higher knowledge. Like engineering is 1 degree of knowledge. Let us say, I think that example is there. Somebody who knows how to put the bricks and mortar and build a hut or something, build a building, build a structure. Then there is the architect who knows how to build the structure. He may not actually go and put the bricks and the cement, but he knows how to build that. And then there's a mathematician who can do the same thing, but he does it from mathematics. So as you take on higher and higher knowledge, you go more to the principles of it. And once you know the principles of it, everything below it becomes clear. So what is higher knowledge? The principle. Okay. So who will read and we did that example about how the child was taught how to save money when you're getting pocket money. So then later on in life, no matter what your income is, you still are able to save because you have that principle is there in your head, that your expense is always lower than your income. If this principle is not in your head, then you always be short of money. People who say, oh, I don't have enough money, it's not that they don't have money. It is that they have not learned a basic principle, which is expense should always be less than income. If you haven't learned this, you can earn any amount of money in the world. It will never suffice. It just simply never will. Or you can have very little money and it still suffice. All right, so who will read the next paragraph? Any questions before we proceed? So we'll read. Who will read the next? Oh no, I read it, right? When one studies and reflects, clarity develops regarding that subject. That should lead higher into the arena of values. Knowledge of a subject should give an understanding of universals. Specialization should lead to generalization. Laws are universal. The concept of division of labor in a factory will also work when one is organizing a children's party. This capacity is the next leap in knowledge. The capacity to take the knowledge in from one field and apply it across the board. Otherwise, what happens is we are all very objective people when it comes to our own field. Like a doctor is very objective. He's a surgeon. He's cutting, all that blood is flowing, heart is beating, all of that. We see we will have heart failure. See all this blood flowing and all that. But he's very objective to that, right? He can handle it. There's no problem. But if he goes home and his favorite pen is lost or something, his child shows him a report card where he has failed, all objectivity goes out of the window. So becoming very, very good at a field means that you are able to not only understand how those principles are applicable in the field, but you're able to understand how those principles are applicable across the board. That is why a famous Upanishadic statement is Yatha Pinda Tatha Brahmanda. As the small, I mean, as anything, so is everything. Yatha Pinda Tatha Brahmanda. Or both ways it works. We know that, right? You know the structure of the atom is the same as the structure of the solar system. Yatha Pinda Tatha Brahmanda. The structure of the day is the same as of the year. It begins cool, it warms up, then it ends up cool again. Right? There's a period in the middle which is like the spring, where it's neither too hot nor too cold. Same like the year. So, Yatha Pinda Tatha Brahmanda. So, knowledge means you've developed clarity. Means you're able to take the principles of field X and apply them across all of life. And I don't know if you've noticed, the greats in the field, whenever people talk about the greats in the field, have you noticed how they always talk of similar character traits? Suppose you're praising Abraham Lincoln or Einstein or Ratan Tata or any great in their field, you find they have similar characteristics. You'll see that now whenever they praise it or write autobiographies, you'll find all the similar characteristics. Same thing they have. They are very dedicated, they're very hardworking, they're very concerned about human beings, same thing. Until you realize that ability of that child to study is the same ability which can make him become CEO of the company. Because he can study day after day, doing what he needs to do. And if he learns this ability day after day to do what you ought to do, he will become a successful person. But those children who sit down with their books, with comics inside, or daydreaming about how much fun they're going to have after the exam, or how well they're going to do in the exam, they will continue this daydreaming as adults. Unless, of course, they come to Vedanta and then they learn some sense. So then there's some hope. But the thing of the crux of the matter is that as you develop in a field, you go from the specifics of that field to the generals, to the universals, to those things which are applicable to all times, to all places. So, wherever the concept of division of labor in a factory will also work when one is organizing a children's party. So, can you take in office? You can do this, right? You do division of labor, it becomes normal. Can you take this same principle home and apply it there? Like in office, everybody will have goals and targets, and this is how much we have to do. All this everybody has in an office. But do they do it with their own life? What is the goal of their life? What are the targets they have for themselves? None of that is done. Or if it is done only in the financial field. Or, in some promotion or some such similar. Not them as a human being, the whole human being. So we're not able to take the principles and put them in other places. This capacity means the capacity to reach the principle of it. This capacity is the next leap in knowledge. Science talks of a particular causality, philosophy talks of genuine. That is the frustrating thing about philosophy, and that is the satisfying thing about philosophy. If you get it, then it's very satisfying. And if you don't get it, then it's extremely frustrating. So most philosophical principles are, what should I say? Are very abstract for the average person. Like they say, okay, so what am I supposed to do? Like the world means change. So then they say, तो मैं क्या करूं? मैं क्या करूं? No, that means you must be able to appreciate that every single thing that you're currently contacting, that you're currently enjoying, and every single thing that you hope to enjoy in the future is subject to change. So that makes you have a very thoughtful eye when you're looking at something. Suppose I want to be Wimbledon champion, right? And I work very, very hard to become a Wimbledon champion. Then what? What should I know now while I'm working so hard? If I have a thoughtful gaze towards it, then I realize that all my hard work, I will be able to become a Wimbledon champion. But having become a Wimbledon champion, that championship will not last with me. If I'm a bog, it'll last what, 7 times? It's 6 or 7 or something like that. If I'm not bog, less than that. But bog or otherwise, it changes. So while I am free to try and obtain this, I should try and obtain it because of what it's doing to me, to my character, rather than the fact that I will actually get the trophy. Because the trophy is a matter of, the reason I try for success is because success sharpens my personality. Not because I hope to actually get that thing. Because I understand that getting that thing is only, Shana Bhangur. It's there with me for some time, and then it won't be. So but we do just the opposite in life. We get so carried away that I need this. And we work very hard maybe. The hard work part is very good. But the craving makes no sense if you have understood that world means change. So when you think of something like, you mustn't think of the fruit. You mustn't think of the fruit and all instructions. But you understand, where is this coming from? Whatever fruit, the word fruit, phalam, very interesting etymology in Sanskrit. And the etymology of it is that which changes in various ways. So I am seeking something which changes in various ways. So why would I go mad for it? I understand that like even this person was telling me, he did his PhD in robotics of all the things in the world. He's a finance person, right? He's from McKinsey. He's a finance person. So why on earth would he go and do a PhD in robotics? Makes no sense. So, but he said this, and it's very true, that when you do something out of your comfort zone, when you do something different, it really sharpens your faculties. And your sharpened faculties are what is useful to you finally, not that PhD. But we are like craving for the PhD. And we go crazy trying to get it. And we get it also. And we're very happy for 2 days. And then back to square one. I remember when I got my PhD, my parents and I were very thrilled. PhD. Because I was the most uneducated person in the family. In my family, everybody has done post-graduation. After my graduation, I went and joined the ashram. So I didn't do post-graduation. So I was the most uneducated person. So, they had to put up with it. They have no option. But I suppose it was always there in my parents' mind somewhere that I'm uneducated. So one day I got a PhD. Now, when I got the result, very happy. They were extremely excited. They gave me some gift and all that for my having got it. Then what happened? Then years have passed. Now I have a PhD. Now who knows, who cares, who's bothered whether I have one or not? Only time these people remember it is when they're writing out my something, who is coming to speak, then they write it over there. Otherwise, nobody cares. But if at all I learned something in the process of doing that PhD, then that is obviously with me, will always be with me. So when we understand the general, I hope you're with me still. What was the general principle?
World means change.
World means change. Then though you work very hard to get whatever it is, that work which you're doing is for your sharpening of your personality, not actually for getting that. Getting that only shows that you've done what needs to be done. That's its only use. If you did everything that needed to be done, you get that object. So if you got the object, that means yes, you were able to think clearly, you were able to work clearly, and so that's good. But the object in and of itself is not important. It's not important in the sense, it's a thing of change. It's there today. How much they go crazy, right? Over Miss Universe, Mr. Universe, all sorts of things. Crazy about it. And then it's gone. Even 5 years ago, do you know who was Miss Universe? Nothing. It's gone. I don't know if we know this year's Miss Universe. The last one we don't know. That day, big news. Miss Universe. I don't know. I don't think anyone of us can remember which country she's from. Nothing we remember. And yet on that one day, she was there on the head. Whoever she was. Ch9.2. It's gone. And yet all the work she did was precious because that sharpened her. That work was precious. Right? So when we begin to understand this, in any field, you go from the specifics to the generals. That which made me come first in second standard because I studied. Is the same thing that makes me the CEO of my company because I did what it required. So science is necessary. Science is necessary for achieving particular ends. Philosophy for reaching beyond those ends. See, science is all about causality. So if you don't know the causality, you cannot achieve it. Philosophy for reaching beyond those ends. All the Vedas are its limbs, says the Upanishad. A beautiful statement. All the Vedas are its limbs. Its limbs means the limbs of Brahman, meaning any knowledge can take you there. If somehow you're able to move from the specifics of that knowledge to the principles. All knowledges converge, tend to the absolute. Through any form, Deepak Sethi, your video is on, so unless you wish to keep it on. All knowledges converge, tend to the absolute. Through any form of knowledge, one can reach the ultimate knowledge. You're all very quiet today, so I have no idea whether everything is clear or not clear. Clear?
Can you please explain this? All the Vedas are its limbs. I didn't quite understand this.
Meaning every knowledge can take you to the transcendental. You are studying mathematics. Mathematics can take you to the transcendental. As long as you're able to take the principles of mathematics and understand how they are universally applicable. In the sense that whatever hard work you have done to learn mathematics, it is the same hard work by which anything is gained. So you are able to transfer this knowledge. So how do I have bring up my child well. I must be able to learn that from the way I have done my mathematics. So I'm able to do that. That's why one of my greatest heroes and somebody who I hope you all learn about is the great Archimedes. Archimedes did nothing but mathematics. But you take any kind of problem to Archimedes, he will solve it for you. So, you know, his most famous one was about that gold in the crown. Then the other one was when the enemy attacked, he single-handedly defended the whole city. So he had the knowledge of math, and with the knowledge of mathematics, he could handle anything. Because he's able to do that transference. Now that needs some intellect. So we have an easier deal. We learn the principles directly in Vedanta. Then you will be able to see in your field, everybody in their field will see how those principles are applicable in their field. Be able to see that. Is that clear?
So from Vedanta, it just makes it easier for us to see the principles?
Easier in the sense it tells you the principles.
It tells us
you the
principles.
universal principles.
Okay. Then we just have to figure out how they're true.
Yeah, we just have to figure out how and where they are true.
Okay, got it.
But that's difficult. So we require that's where a teacher usually comes in, because they put it in context for us. Because if you just told the principles, you will say, "So main kya karu?" You know, like the highest principle. We learned it in school actually. Desire causes suffering. You know, we learned it in school, but it made no sense in our. It never connected with us in any way. Though I'm sure every child in India has learned this. And yet, we didn't get it because our teachers didn't get it. They had to teach us desire causes suffering. They made us memorize desire causes suffering. But it's simply not clear what is that to do with me. So you need a bridge between the principal and us, usually. Which usually, that's what the teacher is. But not always, because some people can know it without the teacher explaining it.
Thank you.
Piyush Bhatt. Yeah, okay, na? Yeah.
Yes,
Piyush Bhatt.
Ma'am, you said that capacity to reach from specifics to generalities sharpens your personality, right? So how,
That is the sharpening of the personality. It's not a
Okay.
means. That is the sharpening.
okay, then, I mean, does it bring about the subjective change? That's what you mean.
Yeah, what I think I said at that point was the hard work that you put in to achieve end A, you're able to see that similar kind of pattern can be replicated for ends B, C, D, E as well.
Okay.
And it is the hard work that sharpens the personality, not the achievement.
Not the achievement.
Not the achievement. The achievement is important only insofar as if you have achieved, that means you figured it out. No.
That's
You
just
didn't
for the
achieve
time
that.
being. That's just for the specific time or a specific qualification or whatever it is.
Yes, but if you have achieved it, that means you figure out how this is to be done.
Yeah. Okay.
So in that sense, it's a good thing.
Okay.
But in itself, it's meaningless.
Okay.
So many things, you got a promotion in your office somewhere. That day, everybody was very delighted. Then after that, you are general manager. Who says, "Oh, wow, you're general manager"? They say, "When are you becoming vice president?" So it's all Shanabhangur. Suppose you become CEO of the company. Then that day, everybody is very happy. But then after that, they don't say, "Oh, you're CEO, what fun." So why is your company not growing? They'll say, "Why are you not a CEO of a bigger company?" This is endless.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
Deepak Sethi?
Yeah, Janki, this point that you are making, that the capacity to, pick up knowledge in one area can be transferred across once you understand principles, etc., etc. So I can relate to it in a very broad kind of a sense. But when it comes down to specifics, have a little bit of a problem. So, for example, as you said, if you master mathematics, you can reach the self. Because in general, the understanding is that in order to be able to excel in any knowledge, and excel, by that I mean solve problems and understand and everything, you need the core thinking skill, the ability to think, which gets enhanced no matter what field you are working on, whether it's astrophysics or whether it is Vedanta. But you also need domain knowledge to succeed. Without domain knowledge, you cannot. So I can understand that if I'm an Einstein, tomorrow, if I take on to, let's say, architecture, I'll be able to master architecture in much shorter time than somebody else, because I have that basic capacity for hard work, clear thinking, etc. But the fact that I can suddenly draw a very good drawing, that is a little bit difficult to think even for an Einstein, because there is a certain amount of domain knowledge. So your comments, please, on that aspect.
Yes, correct. Of course, there is domain knowledge. The thing is, depending on the brilliance of your intellect, inversely proportional to your intellect is the requirement for domain knowledge. For instance, take this Archimedes, which is what he's so brilliant about. How did Archimedes, studying only mathematics, figure out whether the court jeweler is a criminal or not? Because that's the job given to him. Okay, he doesn't have any specific domain knowledge. He's not trained in investigation or anything, but he figures it out. Then he has, then his city-state is attacked, and the story goes, that the legend at least goes, that he was able to defend his city, which he defended successfully until the city was, of course, eventually captured. But that's because, like in India, because somebody opened the door for them, basically. They couldn't get in through fight, so they used cunning. And that's how the city was captured, and Archimedes was killed. But the point being that he was able to deal with the siege on his city just because he studied mathematics. But that's because he's that brilliant. But the rest of us may not be able to do that. In which case, we will start from the basics in the domain knowledge. And like you're saying, we'll be quicker at it. We'll be quicker at picking it. So that depends, what you're talking about depends on how brilliant the guy is.
No, I think the point is very well taken. You captured it, when you said that domain expertise requirement is inversely proportional to your brilliance. Yeah, so that settles it. Yeah, thank you.
Janki-ji, namaste. I got one point, madam.
1 second, Jay, I'll just come to you. I seem to have.
I deleted it.
Oh, you deleted it. Oh, I see.
Question
Okay.
was answered, yeah, by
Okay,
Deepak
fine,
Sethi's
fine.
question.
All right, fine. Yes, Jay.
What I understand is that best out of all these disciplines is Vedanta. So I don't know. I always feel that Vedanta is the best out of all subjects. So the one who pursues Vedanta, he is pursuing the most general, no specifics, not mathematics, no physics, no chemistry, no biology. There are several fields, but he is not pursuing in any one particular field. He is pursuing the most general, that is the topmost. So in that also Mahavakya, suppose, in that also topmost, that you are the absolute. That is the secret. I have to realize it. So I have to pursue that. So I am exposed to that knowledge, suppose. Now, how much it strikes me, how much the so-called the distance between me as of now and that ultimate, that you keep telling that distance determines the quality of my life. It translates itself into vasanas, all that, ignorance, all that. So is it right? Means here the surmise is that pursuing Vedanta is the best, most intelligent course of action one can undertake in this life. Because no point in pursuing physics, mathematics, and all that. But it is not easy. It is easier said than done. Vedanta also pursuing means the ultimate is that I have to merge with that ultimate. Now that is again easier said than done.
Correct.
But still, a point remains that pursuing Vedanta is the clever thing rather than pursuing other things.
Yes, I would tend to agree, obviously, but that is deformation personnel. That means anybody in any occupation will think along that lines of that occupation. So anything I say would necessarily have to be disregarded in this field. But if you want to know what I say definitely you have to do Vedanta. But you have to also think of it like this. Suppose we are going from Mumbai to Delhi. Now, what is the quickest way of doing this? Catch a flight and go. What is the second quickest way of doing this? You go by train, you'll get there. What is the third way of doing this? You walk and go. You take a bullock cart and go. You will get there. Right? Now, the question is, which path shall I take? Shall I take the flight? Shall I take the train? Or shall I walk and go? Which is the best? We can never answer. We can say the flight is the quickest. But is it best or not? Depends on what are the resources at my disposal. If I have money to take the flight, then it's quickest. If I have to earn the 10,000 that it is going to cost for me to do that, then train would be quicker, because then I'll go in 2,000. Right? So which one to take is always a matter of what are the resources available. For some people, the intellect simply cannot grasp Vedanta. I've had the unfortunate experience of sometimes having to tell people something about this, and I lower it and I lower it and I lower it. I thought I was good at lowering the knowledge so that it becomes easy for people to understand. But there are some people, you make it as relative as you like, they simply don't seem to get the idea. Like something like we use as an example, world means change. It's complex in that. It sounds like very, very simple, and few examples can make it very simple. Some people just don't get it. It's like you're talking to a stone wall. Just don't get it. Now, if you tell me, teach them Vedanta, I'll say, Arey Baba, I will commit suicide. I don't want to do this. And if you tell them study Vedanta, they'll say, I want to commit suicide. They also cannot do. So when the resources are not at your disposal, what can you do? So we can only be grateful that we have some interest in Vedanta. That means, at least to some extent, we understand what it is, and hopefully we'll get better and better at it as time goes on. Because really, it's not tough. As my intellect sharpens, there can be no easier subject than this. Just knowledge about your own self. You don't need to study anything. You sit down and think, everything will become crystal clear. And yet, somehow it becomes very complicated. So yes, in principle, totally agree. This is the best subject. That is why we want to start the university. That is why we are breaking our heads on this thing. But it's not for everybody. Definitely not. Resources and swadharma. No, resources here means that's swadharma. That's what it means. For the plane, the resource is the money. But for studying Vedanta, the resource is your intellect. So if that's not available, then that's that.
Yeah, that's what I meant, that it is a function, it could be resources also. And swadharma is the biggest resource. So swadharma is a very important component for what field you will take. You will not choose Vedanta because you say it is the best and the fastest or whatever it is. It's all individual based per se.
Yeah. So if you have the intellect that's able to comprehend, then only you can take it. Otherwise, you can't take it.
Yes.
Close
Yes.
to you. Mahesh, do these people who don't understand Vedanta include the brilliant in their field? Yes, of course. Why not? You can be absolutely brilliant in your field and simply don't get it. I mean, so I speak to people who are at top of their fields. They're brilliant at business maybe, or they're brilliant at something, and then you tell them one slightly subtle concept and it's gone. Can't relate. Even most basic concepts, sometimes they can't. So yeah, because every human being has got two capacities. There's a gross intellect and a subtle intellect, and these are unconnected. They're both discrimination, but they are unconnected. So yes, definitely. You can be very, very smart in your field. You can be Cambridge Tripos, you can be a D-Lit, you can have, just have made so much money. I don't know, suppose we are able to get an appointment with Mukesh Ambani and explain to him what we're doing. Will he understand? Will he relate to it? We can't say just because he's, good at his field, he will understand this one.
Ma'am, is this related to spirituality or your spiritual progress or the level at which you are?
Yes, I mean, as your vasanas decrease in life, you will definitely see more truths because you're closer to the self, right? In other words, you've reached the higher knowledge, so you'll see more truths. Okay. But whether you're willing to put in effort in the field has got nothing to do with your spiritual growth. That's a very, very strange dichotomy. There may be people who are much more spiritually developed than us all in the class, but they are stagnating. And we may not be spiritually developed, but we're struggling and trying to improve. So whether we're putting effort or not is not a matter of where you are spiritually. But what you can see is a matter of where you are spiritually.
Thanks.
Right. So imagine people are all climbing a mountain. So the higher they are on the mountain, the more they can see. But we cannot say that because they're higher on the mountain, they're going to keep climbing higher. That we cannot say.
I'm sorry, just could you clarify this point, Janchiji, that you made that Deepak Sethi asked, and you mentioned that the person who is brilliant in their field can learn. So you gave the example of Einstein and architecture, and you said that they can learn architecture, much easily because they are brilliant. So I wasn't clear. And then we said that you also need to have some sort of aptitude in that field. You may be brilliant, but you can't pick up Vedanta, So I'm not clear yet. I mean, your brilliance matters, but also the field matters, or how does that work? I wasn't clear.
When you're extremely brilliant in a field, let us say that take all the fields which are developed from mathematics. Okay, so you can say science has developed from it, you can say architecture has developed from it, you can say engineering has developed from it. All these various fields have developed from mathematics, right? So technically speaking, if you knew mathematics, you should be able to be an architect, you should be able to be an engineer, you should be able to do science. All of these should be easy for you, correct? Now, will they be easy for you? Depends on how smart you are, how brilliant you are. Otherwise, you learn mathematics, that will be one field. Then now you need domain knowledge. Then you will have to start at the bottom of some other field, let's say science, for instance. You start at the bottom, you study and you go. But now that you know mathematics, or at least as much of it that you have managed to digest, the other knowledges will become easier for you. Is this much clear?
So it depends on which stream you have worked in. You cannot be brilliant across streams. Is that what
No,
you're saying?
you can be, if you are brilliant. If you are a mathematician, why couldn't you do accounts, for instance? But you have to you have to have that kind of intellect to do that. Otherwise, the rest of us mere mortals will have to start each field as domain knowledge.
Okay, and so does swadharma also help in kind of, does it govern how brilliant you are in that sense? I mean, say
Yes.
an Einstein may be good in physics, but may not be in Vedanta. And just as since this swadharma is physics, does that make a difference to his understanding other fields?
In fact, that day when you were talking to Farokh, I wanted to bring this point. I'm glad you brought it up today again. I noticed that you're using the word swadharma, and I find this quite often in class. People use the word swadharma to mean something, to talk about one field. My swadharma is physics, or my swadharma is mathematics. This is an incorrect usage of the term. Swadharma refers to the entire thing. So if I am, let us say, 50% my nature inclines me towards physics, let us say 10% towards cooking, 10% towards violin, 3% towards drawing, 4% towards gardening, whatever. The whole thing together is known as swadharma. Just correcting the usage, because I find this constantly there amongst many people. It always makes us feel that there is a sort of linearity in our swadharma, which is not true. Our swadharma is the whole thing, not one thing. I mean, all our vasanas put together, all our manifested vasanas put together is our swadharma. So that was just an aside. Now, so therefore, if you understand the word swadharma correctly, then the question doesn't stand.
So if you have a 10% interest in Vedanta, you'll understand Vedanta much slowly, even though you may be brilliant in another field, because you have a less percentage. Yeah.
No, your swadharma will include how much analytical skills you have. To understand Vedanta, you need analytical skills. Plus, you need a certain amount of subtle intellect. So all of that put together will determine how much Vedanta you'll actually understand. And also how much work you're willing to put in. Because all of us in the class, we would not be here if we had no interest in Vedanta, right? So interest in Vedanta by itself means nothing. Doesn't mean you're going to work at it. Doesn't mean it's going to be a goal. Doesn't mean anything. And if you remember, you'll be able to tell me. Can anyone tell me where in the Gita does it say this? Interest.
What was the question, sir?
Interest means nothing. Where in the Gita does it say it? It's off-quoted. All those who have done it, who've done 20 sessions will definitely know it, because it's a very famous thing. How many people in this class have done Bhagavad Gita in 20 sessions? Can you all raise your hand? And okay, only one is admitting to it because Shilpa Taruna, not many, okay. Niru, Nilafar, even though you all have not done it, you would have done the Gita, so therefore you know it. Nobody's willing to admit today about only 2-3 people in this class. All of them, so many names I see which I think have probably done it. Okay, Karina, okay. All right, so anyone? Yes, I know many names I see which are familiar and seem like Anuja, you definitely We've studied the Gita in if we didn't do 20 sessions, but I think you did it. Oh, nobody remembers? Give up, everybody? Can I give you a hint? Chapter
Ma'am,
17.
you are what your consistency is, not what
Very
your.
good, Saruna. You are what your Shraddha is. A man
Yes.
is what his Shraddha is. You all have studied it. Yes, a man is what his Shraddha is. A woman also. So, we have so many interests. Our swadharma is full of interest. So what are we actually going to become? Where our Shraddha is. We may have so many interests, but our Shraddha is only for sleep. Then this is what we will get. So a man is what his Shraddha is. Okay, Mahesh?
Yeah, okay.
Did you just give up because it's getting nowhere?
No, I mean, it would require a longer discussion, but I'll think about it. And if I have not yet clear, I'll talk to you.
Okay. Okay, so
Ma'am, just one question in continuation to Mahesh's question. Is extremely brilliant people mean people who are brilliant in their fields? So does that by default means they will be having lesser desires? Or it is not necessary?
not necessary. It depends on how you're using the term brilliance. There is one type, the brilliance means, the way we are using the word brilliance as far as this chapter is concerned, is in the sense that you're beginning to understand more and more of the principles involved. We're using it like that. But you can be brilliant in the sense of your IQ is very high. I'm not talking about that. So if you're talking about the IQ being very high, then certainly no correlation. But if you're talking about understanding higher knowledge, then yes, it would mean spiritual development.
Okay. My example was like Ratan Tata or maybe the Einstein, since they are experts in their fields. So it can happen only when you have fewer desires and you can focus on them only, on those desires only. Is it, am I relating correctly or it is not necessary?
I don't think it's necessary, but whether you can focus or not is a matter of your discipline, not of your desires. There may be people with few desires who are not disciplined at all and not focused at all.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so where were we? Through any form of knowledge, one can reach the ultimate knowledge because you have made all your principles all pervading. Higher knowledge is the knowledge of principles. A single principle can cover millions of individual cases. For instance, all types of human relationships can be dealt with by understanding certain basic principles. This is different from doing specific courses on marital relationships, parenting, employee cooperation, leadership, etc. Geometry. Okay, so you see the difference, right? If you come to Vedanta, you'll learn the basic principles of a relationship. What are basic principles of a relationship? Serve the other person and have correct assessment. Basic principle. But now if you go and you do a course on marital relationships, how do I deal with my husband or wife? How do I deal with my children? There are these special courses on that. But if you can understand it from the principle, you don't need any of it. How do you get employee cooperation? What are leadership? See, Baba, it's all the same thing once you figure it out. Geometry has its axioms. Newton gave physics laws. What amount of cases can E is equal to MC square cover? Finance, cooking, all work on basic principles. What amount of financial ills can be prevented by the simple maxim, spend less than you earn? If one starts saving and investing early in life, one would be way better off than one who invests more but later in life. Okay, so some things we have to see. So that's it for today.
We'll have to make an announcement about next Thursday.
Okay. So as you know, the retreat is happening in France. So we will not have